Good evening, you guys. So, tonight I'm going to be sharing something pretty vulnerable. It was something that happened a few weeks ago, and I only told two people about because honestly, I was mortified that it happened. And I hope that maybe by sharing it, it could be a learning experience for somebody else out there if you're finding yourself in a similar position, especially if you do work your own side hustle and you're working it from home in the pockets of time that you have through your day. So it is a challenge. I've been doing this for the last 6 years, and finding that balance with time and switching between, work mode and mommy mode and wife mode and all these things, it can be a real challenge. And I will say, when I first got into my business, I was really bad about being intentional with my time. I was all over the place. I kind of felt like I couldn't ask for help or couldn't really ask for having just some quiet time on my own because I felt like I needed to be able to figure it all out by myself. And so I was all over the place, and I was just working, like answering messages any spare minute I could, trying to post this, trying to check in here. But I didn't have any set intentional work time. And I would even find myself, like, I vividly remember going to my parents' house to hang out and have dinner, and I was just like on my phone trying to catch up on things. I'm like, all right, Christian's taken care of, like Mark's hanging out with people, like let me just try to catch up on stuff. And probably soon after that, it kind of was brought to my attention, and I realized, like, hey, I cannot be doing this. Because one, it's not fair to the people who I care about and I love if I'm constantly like pulling myself in to do these things. And two, I'm going to burn out because I'm going to feel like it's taking over my life. And so got better about that simply by just setting aside more intentional time to get things done and working to a timer and doing things like that. So anyhow, 6 months ago, I guess, after having Haley and getting cleared to work out and everything, I started my workout routine. And right now, I'm going to get to the story. I'm just kind of laying the foundation here. But I got back into my morning routine with my workout and then having some work time in the morning, which COVID times, like we weren't going anywhere. So it was really nice because I actually could like sit down and get some focused work done in my business. And Christian was doing virtual school, so it's not like we had to be in a rush to go anywhere. So I would sit down and do work, and I didn't really set hard boundaries for myself. It was kind of just like, let me see how long I can have the kids entertain themselves and see how much I can get done in this time. So that was kind of my first mistake, is that I didn't really have a clear end time in mind. And so they would, and I explained to them, I said, hey, mommy has to get some focused work in right now. So you guys need to sort of self-entertain, keep yourself busy, for a bit. And they understood, but they would kind of come in and out. Oh, mommy, when are you going to be done? This and that. And then it was hard for me to focus. And so I would get, distracted and then be like trying to rush to get more things done. And so anyhow, I didn't have that set like end time in mind. So then I found us really cutting it close for getting Christian just down into the basement for school. Like we'd be rushing through breakfast, getting him down to get on in time for school. And after that happening, more than it should have, I was like, okay, you need to like give yourself a time limit and like be done at 8:15, like cut it off. So I set an alarm on my phone and I started, once 8:15 would come around, like that was my time to be finished for the morning before I'd get back into work after the kids go to bed and during their quiet time in the afternoon. But like for the morning, that was going to be it. And it went pretty well, but there were still days where 8:15, the alarm would go off. The boys weren't around, and I would look and I would say, oh, they're not here. I can get 5 more minutes in, or I can answer this message, or I can send this email. And I would just kind of, keep doing that until they basically came in and said, okay, like, mommy, are you done now? And but then still we would be cutting it close again with the time. And there were times where, they would come in and say, or like Christian specifically would say, mommy, all right, like time's up, right? And I would say, yes, but just let me finish this one thing or whatever it was. And then that one thing might take me another 10 minutes, and then they disappear and maybe go off and do something else. And it was just this cycle that I was not breaking myself out of. So anyhow, 3 weeks ago, it was a weekend and I was doing my workout later than normal, and Christian was down here, and so we were about to go out to play, but I was logging my workout post in my group before we went out, and he just said to me matter-of-factly, like, he wasn't trying to be mean, he wasn't trying to be accusing, just so sweetly, he was like, Mommy, is your group the most special thing to you? And by that he kind of means like work, because my customers, coaches are in my groups. And I, like, my heart dropped. It sank. And I didn't know what to say. Like, I was speechless for a second, and I felt terrible because of course, like, my family, my kids, they're the most important thing to me. They are a huge reason why I even started this whole coaching thing in the first place. So for him to say that, I was just like, it just hurt me so deeply. But I also knew in the back of my mind, I was like, I think I deep down knew it's because I'd been pushing the limit with kind of going past those boundaries I had set for myself in the morning. So I dug deeper and I said, honey, like, why would you ever think that? And so sure enough, he started to explain, and that is what it came down to. He said, well, you work for like 6 hours in the morning, which he was exaggerating. Usually it's like an hour and a half or so. But he's like, you work for this time in the morning, and then when it's time to be done, like, he basically called me out on my bullshit and said, like, you're not stopping when you say you're going to. And I just, like, it was such a wake-up call for me to have my 6-year-old tell me this. And I'm so glad that he did, because if he hadn't, I probably would have just continued to do that, and I would have not necessarily known how he felt, or maybe would have found out much later about it. So anyhow, so I talked to him, and it did a couple of things for me. It helped me to realize I need to respect the boundaries, again, that I'm setting for myself when it comes to that time I'm giving to my business, but also just being more intentional with my kids. Because when he said this, I'm like, well, why would he think that? Like, am I not doing enough to make him feel like he is special? And so I'm like, thinking about all these things. And so it did make me think over the last 6 or 7 months since Haley was born, and think about how, he basically, like, virtual school, like, that was his day. He would have breakfast with us, he'd go down and do school, and then we'd have, time with him in the afternoon and evening. But I was like, what? I didn't feel like I was really getting like that special quality time with him. So it did make me reflect on that. And so now, like, we have set this new routine that we are going to be doing regular date nights, just him and I, and then Noah and I will do them too. But it did cause me to pause and think about just being more intentional with the time that I am spending with my kids, and not just being intentional about like setting that business time aside, but even just that special quality time with them. So anyhow, I wanted to share that. I can talk about it now calmly, but I know when I first told my one friend and then Mark, like, I was very emotional about it, just because like, never would I ever want my kid to think that anything else was more special than them. I do want my kids, and they do know that, like, this is important to me, that I love what I do as a coach, that I love this job, I love what it's done for me, and I'm passionate about it, and I do want them to know it's special to me, which clearly they do. I think that's fine for our kids to see that, but like I said, it was just kind of a wake-up moment for me to say, hey, like, get your time boundaries, like, stick to those time boundaries, right? Respect those boundaries. When you tell your kids you're going to be done at 8:15 with the work, like, you're done, cut it off. So anyhow, like, Christian's now my little accountability buddy for that. Like, he's pretty hardcore. Like, when he looks at the clock and he's like, Mommy, you got 4 minutes. Like, Mommy, it's 8:15. And so I'm like, okay, bud. So anyhow, I wanted to share that, you guys. So if you can resonate, if any of this can resonate with you, I just want this to be kind of a reminder to, like, if you are coming into something where you're working your own business and you can work it from home or wherever you want to, be intentional about the time you are setting aside for it. And don't just set aside that intentional time, but make sure you're sticking to the boundaries you're setting for yourself, out of respect for yourself, out of respect for your business, out of respect for your loved ones. Stick to those boundaries. set that alarm, work to the timer, have an accountability buddy, keep that open communication. Hopefully those are things that might be able to help you to manage that if it's something you struggle with, or, you know, if you're going to be getting into something like this, you know, you can take this as some advice for, you know, what to look out for, and be careful about when you are, you know, your own boss. So anyhow, guys, I hope that was helpful. Thank you for listening, and have a good night.